There are mistakes people make at 2 in the morning. Spelling mistakes, leaving the oven on, texting the wrong contact. And then there's a new category, a more sophisticated one, that Camila Reyes Montoya had just inaugurated with distinction. Calling her boss at 2:43 in the morning to confess that she was in love with him. Some mistakes only last 7 minutes and change everything. This was one of those. Camila walked into her apartment in Malasana with her shoes in her right hand and her phone in her left. Her mascara was slightly smudged, not from crying, but from laughing too much, and from that humid Madrid air at the end of October that forgives no one. She'd had exactly 3 gin and tonics, and half a glass of wine she shouldn't have accepted. And in that particular state where the world feels completely manageable and good ideas seem to multiply, she looked at her phone screen. Mateo Aranda Villanueva. Boss. Impossible. She called him. It rang twice. He picked up. Camila. His voice had that tone of someone who wasn't asleep. Deep, still, as if he'd been sitting somewhere in his penthouse on Calle Serrano with the lights low, thinking about something he wasn't going to tell anyone. You have a problem, Mr. Mateo, she said, setting her shoes down on the floor with the precision of someone trying to seem more sober than she actually was. Silence. What kind of problem? He asked. And there was no alarm in his voice, only attention. I am your problem. Camila sat down on the couch without turning on the light. Everything felt easier in the dark. Because I'm Camila Reyes, the efficient assistant, the one who's never late, the one who knows how I take my coffee. Almond milk, a little sugar, a pinch of cinnamon. And you know that too, Mateo, because one day you brought it to me exactly like that, and told me you'd made a mistake with your order, as if a mistake could be that exact. The one who knows that Laura is terrified of clowns, but loves octopuses. The one who knows you pretend to read documents when really you're listening to everything that happens in the office. Another silence, longer this time. Camila, I'm not finished, she breathed. Tonight I met a guy. Gorgeous. Funny. My age, which is apparently a concept you don't consider relevant. And we talked for hours, and he kissed me at the door of my building. And it was a perfectly correct kiss. And the exact second I walked into this apartment, do you know what I did? What did you do? I thought about you. A pause. His voice dropped a little. I don't remember his name. Daniel. Damian. Diego. Something with a D. And that's not right, Mr. Mateo, because he exists, and you're my boss. And on top of that, you have a girlfriend who looks like she came out of a luxury doll factory, who smiles with too many teeth, and who treats Laura like she's an inconvenient piece of furniture in your living room. And Laura is not furniture. Laura is the best part of you, and you don't even fully realize it. Mateo said nothing, but he didn't hang up either. You confuse me, Camila went on. And now there was something close to sadness mixed in with the gin. You confuse me with your exact coffees, and your you haven't eaten since 8, and your movie tickets bought like they're work orders. And then she shows up, with that expensive perfume, walking into rooms like she already owns them. And I stayed home babysitting Laura with a backpack full of colored markers, like an idiot full of hope. You're not an idiot, he said. Low. Direct. No, of course not. I'm worse. I'm a smart person who did exactly the same thing anyway. A long silence settled. Camila stared at the dark ceiling of her apartment. I shouldn't love you, Mr. Mateo. But you shouldn't look at me like I'm something that belongs to you either. She ended the call. And Mateo stood there with the phone still in his hand, in the kitchen of his penthouse, the lights low, a glass of water he hadn't touched. The confession didn't bother him. Only one thing did. Another man had kissed her. If you want to know how this ends, stay until the end. And if you haven't subscribed to Fall in Love with this story yet, now's the time. Hit that like button too. It helps more than you'd think. The story continues. And to understand how Camila Reyes Montoya ended up calling her boss at 2:43 in the morning to confess she was in love with him, we have to go back a few months. We have to see how Mateo Aranda, without meaning to, or maybe meaning to without admitting it, confused her, gesture by gesture, with that unintentional precision men have when they don't realize what they're doing until it's already too late. Camila Reyes had come to Madrid from Valencia with a medium-sized suitcase, a laptop with way too many tabs open, and the absolute certainty that she was going to land a job at a company worth working for. Not just any company, one of those companies where people carry business cards that other people actually keep. Aranda Capital was exactly that. A high-level investment and real estate development firm, founded by Mateo Aranda's father and refounded by him with the methodical coldness of someone who inherits a house and decides to tear it down to build something better. The office is set on Calle Serrano, glass, steel, plants that cost more than Camila's monthly rent, a carpeted silence, and perfectly calibrated air conditioning that seemed to say, "Do we work seriously here, or do we not work at all?" Camila walked in on her first day with her hair pulled back, wearing a navy blazer she'd ironed the night before while her roommate Sophia gave her corporate survival tips from the couch. "Don't be late," Sophia said, without looking up from her novel. "I'm never late." "Don't fall for the boss." "Who does that?" "Everyone, eventually." Sophia turned the page. "It's a statistic." Camila didn't answer. It seemed like an unnecessary warning. She was going to work. She was going to prove she belonged there. She was going to be so efficient that within 6 months, nobody would remember the company had ever existed without her. What she hadn't accounted for was Mateo Aranda Villanueva. She first saw him crossing the office at 8:47 on a Monday morning in April, wearing a charcoal gray suit, a folder under his arm, and the expression of a man who'd already made for important decisions before reaching the coffee machine. Tall, sharp jaw, the kind of handsome that's more unsettling than pleasant, because he wasn't trying for it, and yet there it was. "You must be the new assistant," he said, not stopping, not looking up from the folder. "Camila Reyes." "Good morning, Mr. Aranda." He looked at her then, just for a second, the way someone catalogs information. "There's a meeting with the Barcelona team at 9. I need the Alcazar project dossier on my desk before they arrive." "It's already on your desk," Camila said. A brief pause. "Since when?" "Since 8:20. I went through it this morning. There's an error on page 12 in the third quarter projection. I corrected it and added a note in the margin." Mateo looked at her again, this time a second longer. "Good," he said, and kept walking. It was the most minimal compliment Camila had ever received in her life. And yet, for some reason she chose not to examine, it was enough. Laura Aranda showed up at the office for the first time on a Tuesday in May. She was 6 years old, with dark hair pulled into 2 pigtails someone had made with more enthusiasm than skill, and a backpack with an embroidered dinosaur that was objectively too big for her. She walked in holding the hand of the woman who'd brought her, surveyed the office with the calm assessment of someone who'd already seen plenty in her 6 years of existence, and asked, "Where's my dad?" Camila, who was going through emails at her desk right across from Mateo's office, looked at her, and something in her chest did something strange and warm that she couldn't name in that moment. "He's on a call," Camila said. "Want to wait here with me?" Laura evaluated her with the same calm. "Do you have anything to draw with?" "I've got colored pencils in the top drawer." "How many colors?" 24. "Is there lemon yellow, or just regular yellow?" "There's lemon yellow, ochre, and gold." Laura nodded with the gravity of someone who'd just closed a deal. "Okay, I'll stay." She sat down in the chair next to Camila's desk, pulled a notebook out of the dinosaur backpack, and started drawing with a concentration Camila found utterly endearing. Camila slid the pencils over without a word. Laura picked lemon yellow first, clearly the correct answer, and started working on what, from Camila's angle, looked like a city with purple trees. "What are you drawing?" Camila asked, still typing. "Madrid. But better. You know what Madrid's missing? More purple trees, an ice cream shop on every corner, and fewer men with Monday faces." Camila had to bite the inside of her cheek not to laugh. "Your dad has a Monday face." Laura glanced up toward the glass-walled office, where Mateo was standing on the phone with his back to them. "My dad has a Monday face every day, even Fridays. It's a talent." From inside his office, Mateo couldn't hear them, but he could see them, and for a while now, he hadn't been paying much attention to whatever Barcelona was saying. The dynamic settled into place on its own, with that quiet inevitability things have when they're meant to stay. On the days Laura came to the office, the days that fell on Mateo's custody schedule, when he couldn't rearrange his calendar enough to actually be present, Camila did both jobs at once, without anyone asking. Answering emails, scheduling meetings, reviewing contracts, and at the same time asking Laura if she wanted water, whether the dragon she was drawing had a name, whether she wanted quiet or music. Laura preferred music, specifically something with piano, because it helped her think. "What do you think about while you draw?" Camila asked her one day. "How to make things better," Laura said, with all the seriousness in the world. One afternoon, Mateo stepped out of his office to grab a document and found the scene. Camila on the phone with a vendor, taking notes with one hand, while with the other, she silently handed Laura the green pencil the girl was looking for, without interrupting her own drawing. Perfect coordination, no words, like they'd been doing this dance for years. Mateo grabbed the document he needed and went back to his office. He didn't say anything, but it took him 3 minutes longer than necessary to close the door. The first time Camila asked permission to take Laura to the ice cream shop on the corner was a Thursday in June. One of those Madrid afternoons when the sun pours down on Serrano with full force and the air smells like hot stone. Laura had been drawing for 2 hours and had started glancing toward the street with that look kids get when the outside world is calling and they're still honest enough not to hide it. Camila put down her pen, walked over to the office, and knocked twice. "Come in." She pushed open the door. Mateo was reading something on his screen. "Mr. Mateo, Lara's been staring at the ice cream shop on the corner for a while." He looked up. "And so have I, actually," Camila added, with perfect honesty. Mateo looked at both of them. Laura had appeared behind Camila without anyone calling her, notebook tucked under her arm, wearing the expression of a candidate up for something. "There's a strawberry basil flavor that looks interesting," Laura said. "And what do you know about strawberry basil?" Mateo asked. "I read it on the sign from the window. I've been watching since 4. Camila pressed her lips together to keep from smiling. Mateo looked at the two of them, his efficient assistant and his 6-year-old daughter, standing in the doorway of his office like 2 students awaiting a verdict, and felt something he couldn't quite name. He just knew it was warm, and that it had edges he hadn't expected. 30 minutes, he said. Both of them celebrated silently, bumping fists at hip height, like they'd rehearsed it. Camila grabbed her bag. Laura took Camila's hand, and they disappeared toward the elevator. Mateo looked back down at the report and read the same line 3 times without understanding a word of it. There were small gestures. Specific. Perfectly deniable. That's the most dangerous thing about a man like Mateo Aranda. His feelings never showed up as declarations or cinematic stares. They showed up in details so concrete, so unmistakably his, that only someone watching closely could even read them. And Camila, whose entire job was anticipating needs and reading situations, watched without meaning to at first, and then without being able to stop. The first one was lunch. On a Wednesday in July, Camila had been at her desk for 6 straight hours without standing up. There was a project deadline consuming everything, and she was in that state of total focus where time disappears and hunger gets postponed indefinitely. Mateo came out of his office at 2:15, walked past her desk, and stopped. "It's 2:15. I know, Mr. Mateo. You haven't eaten lunch. I'll finish this in 20 minutes. He looked at her with that expression of his, someone who's made a decision and sees no point discussing it. "Work can wait 10 minutes. Your blood pressure can't." "I'm perfectly fine. I'm not saying it for you," he said, already turning. "I'm saying it because if you faint, my whole schedule turns into chaos." 20 minutes later, a sandwich from the cafe on the corner and a glass of orange juice appeared on her desk. No word, no acknowledgement requested. Camila looked at the sandwich, then at him, already walking back into his office with his back to her. "Thanks," she said. "For the schedule," he replied, without turning around. Camila smiled at her screen. The coffee was harder to brush off. It was a stormy Friday in August when Mateo came back from an outside meeting carrying 2 cups from the cafe downstairs. He set one on Camila's desk without looking at her. "I made a mistake and ordered an extra one." Camila picked up the cup, looked at it. Almond milk, a little sugar, a pinch of cinnamon. Exactly how she took it. "That's a very specific mistake, Mr. Mateo." He was already inside his office. "Close the door on your way out." Camila took a sip. It was perfect. In his defense, he didn't know what he was doing either, which, in a way, made it all far more dangerous. The after-work drinks were a different matter entirely. The Aranda Capital team had a tradition of getting together on the last Friday of every month at a bar in Alonso Martinez. It wasn't mandatory, but it wasn't really optional either, which is the worst kind of thing. Camila showed up with her hair down for the first time in months, wearing a green dress Sophia had lent her, fully intending to have one calm drink and head home at a reasonable hour. What she hadn't accounted for was that the loose hair and the green dress and being outside the office somehow produced a more extroverted version of herself, louder, brighter, a version that laughed easily and made ironic comments that made other people laugh too, a version that was, generally speaking, far more visible than the efficient 9-to-5 assistant. Marcos, from the analytics team, said something in her ear, and she laughed with her whole face. From the far end of the bar, Mateo watched that, and felt something he couldn't name in the moment, but which, in more honest terms, was exactly what it looked like. He walked over without rushing, with that studied calm he used for everything. Camila. She turned, saw him. Something in her expression shifted slightly, like adjusting a focus. Mr. Mateo. Time to go. A short silence. Dense. She looked at him with an expression he hadn't seen before. It wasn't anger. It was something more interesting, confusion, followed by understanding. Excuse me. Mateo processed what he'd just done, processed it in real time, right in front of her, and it was visible enough to be almost uncomfortable. I meant, do you have a way home? I don't want you to be late tomorrow. I'm never late, Mr. Mateo. Right. A pause. Enjoy your night. And he walked off toward the other end of the bar, with the expression of someone who'd just done something he couldn't undo and would rather not discuss. Camila watched him go. Marcos asked if she was okay. Perfectly, she said, and took a long sip of her drink. But for the first time in months, something didn't add up, and that something was wearing a charcoal gray suit and had just tried to send her home from an after-work party. Like that was completely normal. A few colleagues had noticed too. Nobody said anything. Of course, nobody questioned Mateo Aranda much, but glances were exchanged. And Camila, who read situations better than anyone, knew exactly what those glances meant. She could have let it go, convinced herself she'd misread it, that the boss was tired, that one coincidence isn't a pattern. And maybe she would have managed it. If something hadn't happened a few days later that pushed her into territory she'd been carefully avoiding. Mateo called her into his office on a Monday in September. She walked in with her notepad. He had something on his screen that wasn't work. Do you think Laura would like the new movie? The one with the astronaut animals. It took Camila a second to switch gears. The one with the squirrel who pilots a spaceship? I think so, although Laura would probably say the squirrel needs therapy and a better co-pilot. Mateo nodded seriously, like he was reviewing a report. Perfect. Buy tickets for this Friday. The 7 o'clock showing. 3 tickets. Camila looked up from her pad. 3. Yes. You're coming with us. And as if he'd only just realized what he'd said, he added, Laura will like that. Pause. Do you have plans? Camila should have said yes. Should have invented something. Dinner, a friend, some convincing fictional commitment. But she didn't have plans. And worse, she wanted to go. I don't have plans, she said. Good. Tickets for 7. Camila walked out of his office, sat down at her desk, and stared at her screen for 30 full seconds, doing nothing. Then she opened her browser and bought 3 tickets for Friday. That night, Sophia looked at her with the expression of someone who already knew. Told you. Don't. It's a statistic, Sophia said, and turned the page of her novel. Friday was worse than she expected. Worse, in the sense that it was too good. Mateo showed up at the movie theater holding Lara's hand. No suit. Dark jeans, blue shirt, no tie, top button undone. He was unfairly handsome in that register. Camila needed a second, and hoped nobody noticed, to recompose herself. Lara saw her first. Camila, and let go of her father's hand to run toward her, like they hadn't seen each other in weeks, even though they'd seen each other Wednesday at the office. Camila caught her and hugged her, and the little girl smelled like vanilla shampoo, and that specific something kids smell like when they're happy. Did you really come? Laura asked, with a seriousness that suggested she'd genuinely considered the possibility of disappointment. Really? And I'm sitting between you two, so I can share popcorn with both of you. Mateo caught up to them. Good evening, Camila. Good evening, Mr. Mateo. I'm not your boss here, he said. And it was such a simple sentence, and such an enormous one at the same time, that Camila didn't know what to do with it. So she did nothing, and walked into the theater. Laura sat in the middle, as announced. She shared the popcorn with perfect fairness. She wiped a chocolate smudge off Camila's thumb with a napkin, with great seriousness. She leaned on Camila's shoulder during the exciting parts. And at some point during the movie, Camila looked up and found that Mateo wasn't watching the screen, he was watching her. She looked away immediately. So did he. Laura, eyes fixed on the astronaut squirrel, said without turning her head. Dad, the movie's up there. I know, Mateo said. but it took him a few extra seconds to turn his head back. They had dinner after the movie at a small restaurant near the theater. Mateo ordered for Laura with the precision of someone who knows exactly what his daughter eats and what she'll politely, but firmly, refuse. Camila ordered the same thing as Laura, who looked at her with approval. "Good choice," the girl said. "Thanks. You're my food consultant. I get paid in ice cream." At some point, while Laura was explaining in detail why the squirrel from the movie needed a stronger career plan, Mateo and Camila exchanged a look over her head, that specific smile adults share without words. It was just a second, but it was enough. Laura looked at both of them. "This looks like a family," she said, with the objectivity of someone making a scientific observation, "but with my dad trying not to look happy." Camila nearly choked on her water. Mateo looked at his daughter. "Laura, what?" "I'm making social observations. It's educational." That night, Camila went home to Malasana on the metro and lay staring at the ceiling before falling asleep. She'd wandered, without meaning to, into a place she shouldn't have entered, the heart of a 6-year-old girl, and the life of a man who didn't know how to love without giving orders. The problem was that this place felt exactly like home. The call came on a Saturday afternoon. Camila was doing her nails with Sofia when the phone buzzed on the couch. "Mateo Aranda Villanueva." "It's my boss," Camila said, her pinky nail still wet. "On a Saturday," Sofia said. "On a Saturday," Camila confirmed and answered. Mateo's voice was the same as always, direct, no preamble. "I need to ask you something that isn't work." "Go ahead." "Laura asked me to ask you if you could come over tonight to stay with her. I have something I need to go to, and it would put my mind at ease knowing she's with you. I'll pay you well, of course." A pause. "Laura asked," Camila repeated, just to make sure she'd heard right. "And I'd appreciate it too. I trust you with her." Camila glanced at Sofia, who was making a face that meant several things at once. "Can I go?" Camila asked. "8 works," he said, and hung up. Camila sat there with the phone in her hand. "Us," Sofia said. "No, what?" "What you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything." "Are you thinking about taking a shower, putting on something nice, bringing Laura something, and arriving at 8:10? Because you always arrive 5 minutes early." Camila wanted to take a shower. "Statistic," Sofia shouted from the couch. She arrived with a backpack full of new markers, 2 blank notebooks, ingredients to make star-shaped cookies, and something she didn't want to call hope, but was. Mateo opened the door. Jeans, dark blue shirt, no tie, top button undone. The same look from the movie theater, the same devastating effect she should have anticipated and hadn't. "On time," he said. "Always," she replied, and walked in. The penthouse was exactly what you'd expect from Mateo Aranda. Huge windows, clean-lined furniture, books arranged by some invisible system, a kitchen that looked designer-made and probably was. And in the center of the living room, Laura, in rocket print pajamas, came running toward her like the visit was the best thing that had happened all week. "Camila, did you bring markers?" 24 new colors, including 2 different greens. Forest green or mint green? Both. Laura made the same approving gesture she used at restaurants for good food choices. That's when Camila saw her. She was leaning against the door frame of the living room with a glass of wine in hand, the posture of someone standing in a space she considered hers. 34 years old. Dark hair, perfectly straight. Clothes that cost enough not to need announcing. Chin tilted exactly 1 centimeter higher than necessary. "You must be the girl who watches Laura," the woman said, with a smile that was polite on the surface and something else underneath. "I'm Camila, Mr. Mateo's assistant." The woman nodded with that variant of friendliness that's basically its opposite. "Renata Solar." And she turned toward Mateo with the ease of someone who never has to justify her presence. "Mateo, let's go." Mateo grabbed his jacket, glanced at Camila for a second, then at Laura. "Behave." "Always," Camila said, the same word she'd used before, except now it meant something different. They left. The door closed. Camila stood in the living room with her backpack of markers, the plan to make cookies, and something that was no longer hope, but its opposite. "Should we make cookies?" Laura asked. "Sure," Camila said, and went to the kitchen before Laura could see her face. While they made star-shaped cookies, Laura talked with that particular honesty kids have before they learn to soften things. "Renata doesn't ask me things." "No," Camila said, mixing the dough. "She looks at me, but she doesn't ask. There's a difference. Yeah, there is. You always ask me things. What am I drawing? What am I thinking about? Whether I prefer lemon yellow or ochre. It's because you actually want to know. Laura looked at her with those dark eyes, exactly her father's, but with childhood's filter laid over them. You can tell, the girl said, and went back to her stars. Camila put the cookies in the oven and silently promised herself she wasn't going to mistake a complicated man's kindness for something it wasn't, that she was a smart, professional person with a job she liked and a future to build. That Mateo Aranda was her boss and nothing more. She made that promise with real conviction. It lasted until the following Monday. Camila didn't do anything dramatic. She didn't cry in the bathroom, didn't show up late, didn't make any professional mistakes. She just changed in the details, which was the only way she knew how to change. She stopped smiling when Mateo walked in, stopped making spontaneous comments about the schedule, stopped staying 5 extra minutes. She answered questions, executed tasks, was impeccably efficient. In every observable way, she was exactly what she was supposed to be, an excellent assistant. Mateo noticed by the 3rd day. He came out of his office with a document in hand and lingered by her desk, watching her work. Is everything okay? He asked. Everything's fine, Mr. Mateo. Thursday's meeting dossier has been in your inbox since this morning. Good. He stayed there a second longer. Good. He repeated and went back into his office. Laura showed up that Friday. She ran in like always, but this time Camila was on the phone and waved with a smile, but not with that full transformation that used to happen. That kind of lighting up Mateo had seen so many times and had never quite been able to categorize. Laura sat down, pulled out her notebook, and drew in silence. After a while, without looking up, she said, Camila doesn't laugh the same anymore. Mateo, who'd just stepped out of his office, froze. Camila looked at him. I've got a lot of work this week, sweetheart. Laura cleared her throat and kept drawing. That night, back at the penthouse, Laura told her father with the candor of someone who has no idea she's sharing classified information. Dad, some grown-ups break things, and then say the floor was already like that. Mateo looked at her. You made that up. I observed it, Laura said, and went to get her rocket pajamas. Renata showed up at the office on a Tuesday, no appointment. Camila watched her cross the lobby with that walk of hers, not exactly arrogance, but close enough, and felt that specific chill of someone who already knows what's coming. I need to see Mateo, Renata said, the way someone might say I need water or I need air, with that same naturalness. Mr. Mateo is in a meeting with the Valencia investors. He can't be interrupted. You can call and tell him I'm here. I can't interrupt that meeting. Renata looked at her with that version of patience that's basically its opposite. You're very strict for someone so young. Camila smiled with every ounce of professionalism she had. And you're very impatient for someone with no appointment. Renata opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. At that moment, Mateo walked out of the conference room with 2 of the investors. He stopped when he saw Renata, then looked at Camila. Renata, I didn't know you were coming. I wanted to see you, she said, and walked up to him with the familiarity of someone who has every right to. Mateo turned to the investors, shook their hands, said his goodbyes, then turned back to Renata. Give me a moment. Camila looked down at her screen and didn't look up, but she listened. And what she heard was Renata's voice, low, with that intimacy of someone sharing something with another person, and Mateo's voice answering, also low, almost private. Camila opened a document she didn't need to open and started correcting things that didn't need correcting. Once upon a time, there was a brilliant assistant who believed she was good at reading situations. Turns out she was good at reading work situations. The other ones, she read those perfectly too, and chose not to believe them anyway, which, in strictly technical terms, is worse. The message Camila sent to her friends group chat that Saturday was short and contained all the necessary information. SOS. Need to go out, have a drink, and remember that emotionally available men exist in this city. Confirm attendance. Sophia replied in 30 seconds. Confirmed. Getting dressed. Andrea replied within a minute. Confirmed. Boss is involved, isn't he? And when Camila took a while to respond, Andrea added. Confirmed either way. They went to a bar in Malisana with warm lighting and a cocktail menu long enough to forget things. Camila showed up with her hair down and a red dress Sophia had picked with surgical precision. Red sends a message, Sophia said. The message is that I want a calm drink. That's what blue says. Red says something else. They sat down, ordered, and Camila, who'd spent weeks being so professional, so contained, so perfectly efficient, finally let herself talk. She told them everything. The almond milk coffee, the movie tickets, the night babysitting, and Renata in the doorway. The cold week. Renata at the office with no appointment. The fact that Mateo had been looking at her differently for months and then acting like he hadn't been. Sophia and Andrea listened with the attention of people who know this matters, and that whatever they say next is going to carry weight. The boss is hot, Andrea said honestly. That's an objective fact. Thanks. Not helpful. He's also divorced, controlling, emotionally walled off, and has a high-end woman orbiting nearby, Sophia said. Those are also objective facts. I know. The salary matters, Cammy. And your career matters more. I know. Camila repeated, and took a long sip of her gin and tonic. That's when the guy at the next table looked at her. He was handsome in that simple, uncomplicated way that feels like a relief. Dark-haired, light eyes, a smile that showed up without calculation. His name had a D in it. Daniel, Damian, Diego, it was never entirely clear. And when Camila looked back, he came over with the ease of someone with nothing to lose. They talked for hours about light, easy things, Madrid, his job. He was an architect, or maybe an engineer. By that point Camila had had enough to drink that the details were getting blurry, and it was easy being with him. No tension, no hidden meanings, no almond milk coffees that meant something nobody would admit to. Sophia and Andrea left around 1 with that call us tomorrow look that meant tell us everything. The guy walked her home. At the door of her building, he kissed her, and the kiss was good, a perfectly correct kiss from someone who knew what he was doing. And Camila was completely present in it, and also, simultaneously, completely somewhere else. Can I get your number? He asked when it ended. Sure, she said, and gave it to him. He left. She walked into the building, and in the exact second the elevator doors closed, Camila Reyes Montoya, 26 years old, executive assistant at Aranda Capital, 3 gin and tonics deep, pried somewhere on the floor, looked at her phone, found the contact Mateo Aranda Villanueva, called him, and told him everything. That she was the efficient assistant who knew how she took her own coffee, almond milk, a little sugar, cinnamon, and that he knew it too, because he'd brought it to her exactly like that, and called it a mistake. And the guy with the D, whose name she didn't remember. And that Renata had had too much work done. And that Laura was the best part of him. And that he confused her. All of that, in 7 minutes, at 2:43 in the morning. Some mistakes only last 7 minutes, and they change everything. This was one of those. Camila woke up Sunday morning with that particular silence mornings have after a night you'd rather not have had. It wasn't an alcohol hangover, though there was some of that too. It was a hangover of honesty. She made coffee, sat on the couch, picked up her phone. Call log. Mateo Aranda Villanueva. Outgoing call. 2:43, 7 minutes. She stared at it for 30 seconds, then flipped it face down on the cushion and drank her coffee staring at the wall. What happened? Sophia asked from her bedroom doorway, looking well-rested and curious about whatever hadn't let her be. Nothing. You look like something. I look like Sunday. You look like someone who did something they don't know how to undo. Camila handed her the phone without a word. Sophia looked at the call log. Looked at Camila. Looked at the log again. 7 minutes. Yeah. What did you say to him? I don't fully remember. Do you remember anything? I remember mentioning the almond milk coffee, and Laura, and the guy with the D, and that I love him. Pause. I think. Sophia set the phone down on the table carefully, like it might go off. Okay, she said. Okay. It's done. You can't undo it. So Monday, you go to work, you're professional, and you see what happens. And if he fires you, Sophia picked up her own coffee. He's not going to fire you. Because if he were going to fire you, he'd have hung up in the first minute. He wouldn't have waited 7. Camila stared into her cup. Sophia was right. And somehow, in some twisted way, that was the most terrifying part of all. Monday, Camila arrived at 8:20, like always, hair pulled back, the same navy blazer from her first day, like an anchor. She turned on her computer, checked the calendar, prepped the dossier for the 10 o'clock meeting. Mateo arrived at 8:47, also like always. He crossed the office, stopped by her desk. Good morning, Camila. Good morning, Mr. Mateo. A pause. He didn't keep walking. Is everything okay? Yes, perfectly. The dossier for the 10 o'clock meeting is already in your inbox. Thank you. A longer pause. Saturday night, you called me. The world stopped for a second. I'm sorry, she said, although she already knew what was coming. 2:43. He said it with the same neutrality he might use to say there's a meeting at 3. Camila picked up her phone, opened the log. There it was. Mateo Aranda Villanueva. Outgoing call. 2:43, 7 minutes. Heat rose to her face in a way she hoped wasn't visible. Mr. Mateo, I don't remember exactly. You didn't say anything you need to worry about. Nothing. Nothing I'd ever use against you. She looked at him. He was looking at her with that same expression of his, serious, controlled, but with something underneath that hadn't been there before. Something more attentive, more present. I said something inappropriate. You said a lot of true things. Silence. Camila didn't know where to look. Mateo shifted gears, back to his usual register. The 10 o'clock meeting. I need you there to take notes. Of course. He started walking toward his office. Stopped. Didn't turn around. You got home okay? Yes. Did someone walk you? Camila looked up. There it was, the question that confirmed he'd heard everything. Or enough. That has nothing to do with my job, she said. Mateo took the hit without moving. No, it doesn't. And he went into his office. Camila stared at the closed door for exactly 5 seconds. Then she opened the document for the 10 o'clock meeting and got to work. For the record, Mateo Aranda took 7 minutes to not hang up that call and 2 days to ask if someone had walked her home. For a man supposedly feeling so little, he was doing a pretty terrible job of hiding it. The next scene happened on a Wednesday afternoon at the penthouse on Calle Serrano. Camila was there because Laura had sent her a photo of a drawing she wanted to show her, and Mateo had said, with that clumsiness of his, where requests came out sounding like work orders, that if she had nothing urgent, she could stop by for a minute. She had nothing urgent. She stopped by. Laura met her in the hallway, drawing in hand, with the urgency of someone with something important to show. It was Madrid, improved, new version. Now it had purple trees and an ice cream shop on every corner. And in the center, 3 small figures, one tall, one medium, one small. Who are they? Camila asked. You already know, Laura said, and went to grab her markers. Camila was still looking at the drawing when she heard Renata's voice in the living room. She walked in. Renata was standing by the dining table, where Laura usually left her things. There were papers, notebooks, a rubber dinosaur Laura called Berta. Renata looked at all of it with the expression of someone assessing a mess. Mateo, you really need to set some boundaries, she said. This child cannot turn every room into a daycare. Laura was standing in the doorway. She'd heard. So had Camila. Camila knelt down, gathered up the rubber dinosaur and the notebooks, and set them neatly aside without a word, just tidying Lara's things, the way someone does when they take care of someone. Renata watched the scene, looked at Laura, and said with that surface-level kindness that was basically its opposite, Laura, sweetheart, you won't always have someone to tidy up after you. It's good to learn that. Total silence. It wasn't what she'd said, it was how she'd said it. Aimed at the girl, with Camila kneeling right there in the middle of it, picking up the notebooks, as if she were being pointed at without being named. Laura pressed the markers against her chest, said nothing, which, for Laura, was always more eloquent than any answer. Mateo came out of the kitchen at that moment. He saw Camila on her knees by the notebooks. He saw Laura in the doorway with an expression that wasn't crying, but came close. He saw Renata with her wine glass and the posture of someone who'd just said something perfectly reasonable. Camila is not here to be put down in my house, Mateo said. Low voice. Final. And Laura doesn't need anyone teaching her that lesson. Renata smiled like someone who thinks this is an overreaction. Mateo, don't be. You just disrespected someone I respect, in my home, in front of my daughter. I was teaching a lesson. Get out, Renata. A pause. Are you asking me to? Yes. Renata picked up her bag with the calculated dignity of someone who refuses to give the scene she's being baited into. She glanced at Camila one more time. That look that was both an assessment and a warning, and left. The door closed. Laura came out of the doorway and went straight to sit by her notebooks. Opened one. Picked up a blue marker. Dad, she said, without looking up. You did something good today. Thanks, Laura. It wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. Compliments have a different tone. Mateo looked at Camila. Camila was watching Lara draw. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Perfectly," she said. And she meant it, though there was a new hollowness somewhere in her chest, because what had just happened was a gesture. And a gesture wasn't enough. And she knew it. The Aranda Capital annual event was an investor presentation with all the formality of a gala and the atmosphere of someone who has to prove they're worth other people's money. It was held at a hotel downtown. Catering, speeches, the kind of conversations that require knowing when to listen and when to talk. Mateo brought Lara because it was his weekend with her, and he hadn't managed to rearrange it. She arrived in a red dress, with the expression of someone who knows this is going to be boring but accepts it as part of the deal. Camila was there in a professional capacity, managing the event's logistics. She caught Lara's eye when they arrived, and the girl gave her the discreet help-me signal they developed without ever agreeing to it. Camila spent the first hour moving between vendors, speakers, and investors. At some point, she lost track of Lara. So did Mateo. "Have you seen Lara?" he asked Camila when they crossed paths by the drinks table. 20 minutes ago, she was near the back window. They went. She wasn't there. Mateo kept his composure with that efficiency of his for hiding what he felt, but Camila knew him well enough by now to see something tightening underneath it, in his chest. "I'll look for her," Camila said. "You stay here in case she comes back." "Camila, I know her. I know where she goes when she wants to disappear." She found her in a small room on the second floor, reserved for minor events, now empty and quiet. Lara was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, notebook on her knees, drawing with her usual concentration. Camila walked in, sat down beside her on the floor, no questions yet. They sat in silence for a moment, drawing. Well, Lara drawing, Camila just watching, since she had nothing to draw with. "Are you hiding, or making an art installation?" Camila finally asked. "Both," Lara said. And when she looked up, her eyes were bright, the kind of bright that comes from being very close to crying without quite getting there. "I heard Renata," the girl said. "She told someone that when Dad rebuilds his life, I'll have to get used to not always being the center of things." Camila felt something tighten and go cold in her chest. "Camila," Lara said, "I don't want a catalog mom." The girl said it with that precision kids have when they've thought about something a lot before saying it. "I want people who laugh with me, who ask me what I'm thinking about, who know lemon yellow is better than ochre." Camila looked at her. "A lot of people know that," she said. "You know it," Lara said, simply as a fact. Camila opened her mouth to respond and never got the chance, because Mateo was standing in the doorway. He hadn't made a sound. They didn't know how long he'd been there. Lara saw him and said nothing, just reached out an arm toward him, that gesture kids make when they're asking without asking. Mateo crossed the room, sat down on the floor next to his daughter, and hugged her without a word. The three of them stayed like that for a moment, in silence, in that small room, while the event went on downstairs without them. Mateo looked at Camila over Lara's head, and what was in his eyes was so clear, so new, that Camila had to look away. Camila submitted her transfer request on a Thursday morning. She left it with HR, signed, the reasons written in language professional enough that nobody could question it. Mateo found out before noon that same day. "Camila, my office." It was the first time he'd used that tone, the "this isn't work" tone. Since the Monday after the call, she walked in, closed the door, stayed standing. "Sit down." "I'd rather stand." He looked at her, nodded. "Why?" "Why what, Mr. Mateo? Don't call me that right now. Why are you requesting the transfer?" Camila took a breath. "Because I came to this company for my career. Because I wanted to prove I belonged here. And I proved it." Pause. "I didn't come here to become a complication in your personal life. I don't want you to leave." "I know." "Then stay." "That's not enough, Mateo." It was the first time she'd called him by just his name. They both noticed. He stood up. Didn't move closer, just stood. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I want you to stop saying things halfway with your actions and then denying them with your words." She breathed. "I can handle a difficult boss. I've been doing it for months. What I can't handle is a man who takes my hand without touching me and then acts like I imagined the whole thing." Mateo stood still. "You didn't imagine anything," he said. "That's not enough either." Silence. "Give me time," he said. "You have all the time in the world, Mr. Mateo. But I'm not going to sit in the waiting room indefinitely." She walked out of his office, grabbed her bag, and went to lunch alone for the first time in months. Mateo stood in the center of his office, looking out at the city through the glass, And for the first time in a long time, control, always his favorite tool, felt completely useless. Mateo Aranda never did things without planning them. It was as fundamental to him as the color of his eyes or his intolerance for clutter. Every decision had a process. Every action had a stated purpose. So when he found himself parked outside Camila's building in Malasana at 11 p.m. on a Friday, having not called, having no idea what exactly he was going to say, with Laura at her mother's for the weekend, he knew something in him had changed irreversibly. He texted her, "I'm downstairs. I won't come up if you don't want me to." He waited. 3 minutes later, Camila came out the front door of the building. She was in home clothes, dark pants, gray sweater, hair pulled back less perfectly than at the office, and an expression that wasn't exactly surprise, but something more complicated. "What are you doing here? I didn't come as your boss. I can see that. I came as a man who's understanding way too late how much of a coward he's been." Camila crossed her arms, not as a defense, but like someone who needs a moment to decide whether to let this land. "Mateo, I noticed you, from the first day." He said it without preamble, in that way of his, going straight to what mattered, once he finally decided to. "The coffee was about you from the beginning. The movie tickets were about me. The afterwork thing, I got scared of what I was feeling, and I reacted badly." "Yes, you did. I know." He breathed. "I love you, Camila." She lost her breath. That wasn't a sentence Mateo Aranda said. And precisely because it wasn't the kind of sentence he said, it carried a different kind of weight. "And I didn't know what to do with that," he continued. "So I did what I always do. I tried to control everything, your time, your closeness, my own feelings. But you can't control a person without hurting them." "No," Camila said. "You can't. I made a mistake with Renata. Not because I wanted her, but because she was predictable, and I was afraid of what wasn't." Camila looked at him. Mateo waited. "I made a mistake too," she said finally. "I shouldn't have called you like that. I shouldn't have mixed things up that way. I'm glad you called." "You're glad. Not about the part where another man kissed me," she said. And there was something in her voice that, in another man, would have been humor, but in him was pure honesty. Camila looked at him. "I think his name was Diego." Mateo's jaw tightened. "I didn't need to know that. I'm not even sure. It could have been Daniel." "Camila." "Yes. Are you going to let me finish?" She waited. "I don't want to be the man who takes your hand without touching it." He paused. "Can I touch it now?" Camila lowered her arms. Mateo took a step toward her, took her hand. Just that. With the same precision, he did everything, but with something new underneath it. "Careful," he said. "I'm not going to ask you to sit in any waiting room, but I need you to know this is real, that you are real to me, that you're not my assistant, or Lara's babysitter, or a complication. You're the person who taught me how to be present without anyone asking me to." Camila looked at him for a long second. "That's a good speech," she said. "It's not a speech. It's just true. I know. That's why I like it." And it was she who closed the distance. She who moved first. And Mateo, who'd spent months controlling every movement, stood completely still and let her choose. Camila put a hand on his chest, over his shirt, over his heart, and looked up at him. "Okay, Mateo," she said. "It wasn't a movie kiss. It was something better. It was real. It started slow, with the caution of two people who know there's no going back from this." Madrid carried on around them. Cars, distant music from some bar in Malasana, the cold November air that smelled like stone, and something just beginning. The kiss changed after a few seconds. Not urgent yet, but no longer just an introduction either. Mateo pulled her closer by the waist, and Camila felt the warmth of his hand through her sweater, that specific heat that had nothing to do with the temperature of the air and everything to do with him. When they pulled apart, it took both of them a moment to open their eyes. "Okay," Camila said quietly. "Just okay?" he asked. "Very okay, but I'm not giving you everything all at once." Mateo did something Camila had seen very few times. He smiled, really smiled. Not the almost smile from the office. A full smile that changed his whole face. "Are you going to let me come up?" he asked. Camila looked at him for a second. "Sophia left for Valencia this week. Her parents." She said it, and said nothing else. "Ah," Mateo said. "Yeah," Camila said. And they went up. Her apartment was the exact opposite of the penthouse on Serrano, small, bright in the daytime, but not at night. Furniture that had arrived from different places and somehow worked together anyway. Books stacked with no apparent system. a plant on the windowsill managing to survive despite the lack of sun. Mateo walked in and looked at everything with that same attentiveness of his. "What do you think?" she asked. "The clutter has logic to it. Everything has logic, if you look at it long enough." "That's the truest thing you've ever said." Camila turned on the living room lamp, warm light, just enough, and went into the kitchen. "Want anything?" "No." When she turned around, Mateo was closer than she'd expected. He hadn't crossed into the kitchen. He was still in the doorway, but the doorway was small, and he was tall, and suddenly the distance between them was a choice, not a circumstance. "Camila," he said, "I've wanted to do this right for months." A pause. "I don't know if I'm going to get it completely right." "Nobody does," she said. "You just try honestly." He crossed the threshold. There wasn't much conversation for a while after that. The desire that had been building for months, in the almond milk coffees, the movie tickets, the looks through the glass, finally had all the space it had never had before. And it filled that space with the particular intensity of things that had been waited for too long. Mateo's hands found her waist, and then her hair, that dark hair he'd seen pulled back for months, now loose between his fingers. And Camila's hands found his shirt, not the office one, something more intimate, more real. "Hey," she said at some point. "What?" "The coffee you left on my desk. The first one. Now. You really did make a mistake that time." Silence. His mouth brushed her jaw. "No," he said. Camila laughed against his neck, and that laugh, warm, real, completely undefended, was the most beautiful thing Mateo had heard in a long time. "I knew it," she said. "Don't say you knew it." "I knew it from the first sip." "Camila." "Yes." Quiet. She didn't quiet down, but she stopped talking, which isn't exactly the same thing. Dawn arrived without either of them looking for it. Madrid at 4 a.m. has a stillness it doesn't have at any other hour, and in the small apartment in Malesana, that stillness drifted in through the cracked window along with the November cold. Camila was half asleep when Mateo spoke. "Are you half awake?" Why? Because I wanted to tell you something, but I didn't want you fully awake, so you don't have to repeat it tomorrow with more composure." Camila opened one eye. "That's cheating." "I know." A pause. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "This." Staying, without calculating the exit. "Then stay," she said. "And tomorrow we'll figure out whatever needs figuring." Silence. "Okay," he said. And he didn't calculate any exit. Mateo woke up first. The Madrid light at 8 a.m. came through the window with that particular quality of November Saturdays, cold, horizontal, honest. Camila was asleep, hair across the pillow, an expression of peace he'd never seen on her at the office, because at the office she was always doing something. He watched her long enough to feel something he couldn't quite categorize, but it had warm edges. Then he went to the kitchen, found the coffee, found the almond milk in the fridge, the cinnamon in the top cabinet, second shelf, behind the paprika, the small amount of sugar in the sugar bowl next to the stovetop coffee maker, one of those Italian aluminum ones that make more noise than coffee, but the coffee tastes better. He made two. When Camila appeared in the kitchen doorway, huge sweater, hair loosely tied back, barefoot, Mateo handed her the cup without a word. She took it, looked at it, smelled it. Almond milk. A little sugar. "Cinnamon," she said. "Yes. You made a mistake again." "No," he said. "What a relief." She took a sip. "It's perfect." They stood like that for a moment, in the small kitchen, with their coffees in the silence of a November Saturday. "Any plans today?" he asked. "No plans. Lara's back with me tomorrow." A pause. "I could stay today." Camila looked at him over the rim of her cup. "Are you asking permission?" "Yes." "That's new." "I'm practicing." Camila smiled, the smile of someone exactly where they want to be. "You can stay," she said. And that's how the most controlling man in Madrid learned that there's exactly one thing you can't manage in a spreadsheet. Although, in his defense, he tried for quite a while. Lara had been talking about Camila for weeks. Elena Aranda knew it with the precision of someone who listens to her 6-year-old with the same attention she'd give anything else important. Camila knows lemon yellow is better, Lara had told her one Tuesday, out of nowhere, while doing homework. Better than what? Elena asked. Then ochre. Ochre's just a personality preference. Elena filed that away. Does your dad know that too? Dad knows lots of things. He just doesn't always say them. Lara picked up the lemon yellow pencil. Camila says things and does things at the same time. It's more efficient. Elena raised an eyebrow and decided not to ask any more that day. Lara's school art exhibition was on a Friday in December. Lara called Camila 3 days before to invite her, didn't ask, informed her, in her usual style. Friday is the drawing exhibition. At 6, I'll be in the back room with the purple trees. I'll be there, Camila said. Good. Dad's coming too. Does he know? I'm telling him right now. At the same time, Camila pictured Lara holding the phone in one hand and her father's schedule in the other, and had to bite her cheek. Mateo canceled a board meeting that Friday. His partner Ignacio called, scandalized. Mateo, this meeting's been on the calendar for 3 weeks. I know. We'll move it to Monday. Can I ask why? My daughter has an exhibition today. Silence on the other end. Ignacio said, and then, more gently, okay. Mateo went. Lara's school had set up the exhibition in the gym, turned into a gallery for the day, drawings hung on brown craft paper along the walls, kids in their best school clothes, parents circling and photographing with that specific pride of December Fridays. Camila arrived at 6:10, found her way to the back room, where indeed there were purple trees. Mateo arrived right at 6. He saw her before she saw him. She was looking at one of Lara's drawings with a smile that wasn't the after-work drink smile or the office smile. It was something else. He walked over. On time, he said. Always, she replied, and smiled at him in a way that, in the new context of what they now were, meant more than it used to. That's when Elena appeared. Camila recognized her. Mateo had mentioned her name once or twice, and Lara had her exact same eyes. Elena was tall, effortlessly elegant, with the calm of someone who's already processed what needed processing and arrived at peace with it. She looked at Mateo, nodded, then looked at Camila. You must be Camila, she said. I am. Camila extended her hand. Nice to meet you. Elena shook it, assessed her with that quick, discreet red smart people have. Lara talks about you a lot. Elena said. Good things, I hope. She told me you know lemon yellow is better than ochre. Camila smiled. It's a personality preference. Elena smiled too, and in that smile was something that said now I understand. The three of them stood together in front of the drawings. There was no tension. There was something more mature and rarer than tension, mutual respect between people who wanted different things from the same girl and had decided that didn't have to be a problem. At one point, while Mateo went to grab a program, Elena turned to Camila. Lara loves you a lot, she said, directly, no preamble. I love her too. I know. It shows. A small pause. Take care of her. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Camila nodded. I will. Mateo came back with 3 programs, gave one to each of them, and the 3 of them waited for Lara to come out. She emerged from behind the panel where the kids had been waiting, with that mix of nerves and determination 6-year-old artists have. She scanned the crowd, found the 3 of them standing together, paused for a second, and smiled with her whole face. Then she went to stand by her favorite drawing, Madrid, improved, with the purple trees and 3 small figures in the center, and started explaining to anyone who'd listen why purple trees were objectively a civic improvement, and why every corner needed an ice cream shop. Mateo, standing beside Camila, watched his daughter. Camila watched him, and there was something in that scene that was completely new for Mateo Aranda, this feeling of being in the right place, at the right time, without having calculated anything. And yet it felt like the most natural thing he'd felt in a long time. He took Camila's hand without a word, without asking permission this time, because permission had already been given. She didn't pull away. The Aranda Capital quarterly presentation before the Board of Investors was the biggest event of the 4th quarter. Camila had coordinated the entire logistics, materials, presentations, catering, the speaking schedule. She checked every figure 3 times. Anticipated questions, prepared answers. She'd done, in technical terms, the work of 2.5 people. In the room, seated at the end of the table, was Domingo Ferrero, senior investor, 60-something, the kind of man who believes competence has a gender. He interrupted the presentation with a question directed at Mateo. All this administrative coordination work, who handled it? Ms. Reyes assisted with the administrative side. Another executive said, before Mateo could answer. Mateo looked at him. No, he said. Silence in the room. Camila Reyes led the strategic coordination of this entire project. She caught an error in the third quarter projections that would have cost this board roughly 200,000 euros. She restructured the entire presentation schedule when our main vendor dropped out 2 weeks before this event. And she carried this project while several people at this table were too busy debating slide formats. Nobody spoke. Starting today, Mateo continued. If Camila accepts, she stops being a personal assistant and takes over executive coordination of our new project management department, with the salary and recognition that role deserves. Every head in the room turned toward Camila, standing by the wall with her notepad, an expression that wasn't exactly surprise, something deeper. Do you accept? Mateo asked her directly. Yes, Camila said, without hesitation. Good. Mateo went back to the presentation. The room took a second to react. But it reacted. Afterward, in the hallway, once the meeting ended, Camila stopped him. I don't want you promoting me because you're in love with me. I didn't do it for that. Are you sure? I've been in love with you since before I realized you were brilliant. But you've been brilliant since before I fell in love with you. A pause. Those are two different things, even if they happen to be the same person. Camila looked at him for a second. That's a really good line, she said. I've been working on it for a while. It shows. He almost smiled. Dinner with me tonight. Are you asking or ordering? Asking. Then yes. Epilogue. 8 months later, the ice cream shop on the corner of Serrano still had its white marble tables and a flavor selection that Lara Aranda audited with the seriousness of a junior food inspector. It was a hot Saturday in July, bright in that way Madrid gets, smelling of linden trees and summer city air. Mateo arrived holding Lara's hand. He found Camila at the back table, the same one where, 8 months earlier, she and Lara had asked permission like two students awaiting a verdict. You're late, Camila said. We're right on time, Mateo said. It's 6:03. 3 minutes is not on time. For someone who's never late to anything, 3 minutes is an important philosophical concept. Lara sat down, picked up the flavor menu with both hands, and read it with the concentration it deserved. There's a new one, she said. Mango and cardamom. Does that sound interesting? I need to think about it, Camila said. Mango has a solid track record. Cardamom is a gamble. Life's a gamble, Mateo said. Lara looked at him. Dad, we're talking about ice cream. Don't do that. Mateo glanced at Camila. Camila pressed her lips together to keep from laughing. After the ice cream, Lara chose mango with cardamom and declared it a sound decision, though she said she needed more data to confirm. Lara pulled a folded piece of paper out of her backpack. I have something, she said. What do you have? Camila asked. A new drawing. The definitive version. She unfolded it on the marble table. It was Madrid, improved, version 3. Purple trees, ice cream shops on every corner, and in the center of the city, a specific ice cream shop with 3 figures sitting at a table, one tall, one medium, one small. And underneath, in Lara's handwriting, my family, from when Dad learned how to ask permission. Camila looked up. Her eyes were shining. Dad asked permission? She asked. He's learning, Lara said. Not perfect, but the trend is positive. Mateo cleared his throat. Lara, what? Can you give me a moment? For what? To do something. Lara looked at him with the expression of someone who already knew exactly what was about to happen. It's what I think it is. You probably rehearsed it a few times. And the jewelry thing, Dad. Lara, Mateo said. I'm just making sure everything's in order. It's my process. Camila looked between them. There was something warm and enormous in her chest that made it a little hard to breathe normally. Mateo got up from his chair, not with the formality of someone who'd planned everything down to the minute, but with the ease of someone who'd made a decision and was no longer afraid of being seen making it. He knelt in front of Camila, on the white marble floor of the ice cream shop on Calle Serrano, the same spot where she and Lara had once asked permission like two kids. In the same Madrid that Lara kept improving in her drawings. For years, Mateo said, in that low voice he used when something really mattered. I thought loving someone meant protecting them from a distance, controlling the damage, avoiding the chaos. A pause. Then you showed up, and you taught me that love means being there, listening, showing up on time, saying sorry, asking permission, and choosing every single day without hiding behind fear. Camila's eyes were full. And there's something else, he continued. That night you called me. At 2:43. You said you shouldn't love me. I remember, she said quietly. You were right that you shouldn't. But you did anyway. He breathed. I did the same thing, and I don't regret any of it, except taking so long to say it properly. He pulled the box out of his pocket. Laura, sitting with her arms crossed and her best professional face on, nodded once. Camila Reyes, Mateo said, "Will you marry me?" A second of silence. "Say yes," Laura whispered urgently. "Please. We rehearsed this so many times." Camila laughed, with tears in her eyes and everything. She laughed. "Yes," she said. Laura celebrated, throwing her arms up in that same silent gesture she used whenever she got permission to go for ice cream. Then she grabbed the drawing off the table. "I need to make version 4, she said. "This one's already out of date." "What are you going to change?" Camila asked, her voice still a little broken. "I'm going to add rings. And maybe a baby, depending on how the data develops." Laura, Mateo said. "What?" "It's a projection. Data is important." Mateo sat back down, took Camila's hand, and the three of them stayed there for a moment, at the white marble table, with the Madrid summer pouring in through the door, and the mango cardamom ice cream turning out to be a gamble that paid off. And that's how the story of the most controlling man in Madrid, and the assistant who was never late, came to an end. Although end isn't quite the right word. Let's say it arrived at a final destination, which is what love does, once you finally stop putting obstacles in its way. Want to know what happens next in stories like this one? Subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, what moment made you fall in love with this story?